Before I knew her name, before I knew her story, I knew the way she stood, alone against the sea like she was daring the world to blink first. Grief had hollowed me out, but something about her posture, her stillness, struck a nerve that wasn't dead yet. 3 weeks after I buried my wife, the ocean put a stranger in my path and changed everything. I wasn't looking for a miracle. I wasn't even looking for company. But sometimes, the most important moments happen when you're not looking at all. I met her on the beach 3 weeks after I buried my wife. I wasn't staring at her body. I was watching the way she stood there alone, barefoot in the sand, wearing a red bikini-like armor, like she was challenging the entire world to say something about it. The wind pushed her hair across her shoulders, and she didn't bother fixing it. She didn't shrink or adjust herself or glance around to see who was watching. She stood rooted, shoulders back, chin lifted, like she belonged to the horizon itself. When she noticed my gaze, she didn't flinch. She turned slowly, deliberately, her eyes locking, onto mine with a sharpness that cut clean through the salt-heavy air. "Eyes are up here," she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't embarrassed either. It was testing, measuring, like she'd said those words 100 times to 100. Different men who all failed whatever came next. But I wasn't those men. I didn't look away. I didn't smirk or apologize or pretend I hadn't been watching. I held her gaze, steady and unbothered, and said the only thing that felt honest. "You wore that bikini on purpose." She paused. The ocean thundered behind her. A gull screamed somewhere overhead. For 3 heartbeats, neither of us moved. Then her lips curved. Not into a smirk, not into a grin, but into a real smile, the kind that escapes before you can stop it. "Maybe I did," she said softly. And something in her voice made me realize this woman wasn't just my neighbor. She was someone who'd been broken in a way I recognized. Someone who'd forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen. Her name was Juliana. She'd inherited the cottage next to mine 6 months, earlier after her grandmother passed. She had a 6-year-old daughter named Lily who built sandcastles every morning like it was her job. And she had walls around her heart so high I could barely glimpse over them. But that smile, that one unguarded moment, told me everything I needed to know. She didn't wear that bikini for attention or approval. She wore it because someone had made her feel invisible. She wore it because she was trying to remember who she'd been before a man convinced her she wasn't enough. And when she smiled instead of walking away, I understood something that shifted the ground beneath my feet. She wasn't looking for a man to rescue her. She was looking for a man brave enough to see her. That night I sat on my porch with a glass of whiskey, watching the sun bleed orange and pink across the horizon. The ocean rolled in slow, lazy waves, the air thick with salt and something faintly sweet, honeysuckle maybe, drifting from the bushes between our cottages. I heard her screen door creak open. She stepped onto her porch with a glass of wine, her hair damp from a shower, wearing an oversized sweatshirt that slipped off one shoulder. She looked softer now, less armored but still cautious, like she didn't quite trust the quiet. She glanced in my direction, then looked away, like she was deciding whether I existed at all. I lifted my glass toward her and said nothing. She hesitated. Then she lifted hers back. She didn't come over that first night. She didn't go inside either. We sat on our separate porches, 15 feet apart, listening to the waves, the crickets, and the silence that stretches between two people who've forgotten how to start conversations. But the next morning, everything shifted. I was walking along the shoreline with a cup of coffee when I heard a small voice behind me. Mister, wait!" I turned and saw her daughter running toward me, curls wild, knees sandy, holding something cupped in her hands like it was treasure. "Look what I found," she said, breathless and glowing. She opened her hands to reveal a sand dollar, perfect and unbroken, the kind you search for your entire childhood and never find. "That's beautiful," I said, kneeling to her level. "Do you know how rare those are?" She shook her head, eyes wide. "Most of them break before they ever reach the shore," I said. "But sometimes, if you're really lucky, the ocean gives you one that survived everything." She stared at it, then at me. "Can I keep it?" "It's yours," I said. "You found it." Her grin stretched so wide it looked like it might split her, face in two. She spun and ran back toward the cottage, shouting, "Mommy, Mommy, look what the nice man said." I stood and saw Juliana watching from the edge of her porch. arms crossed not in defense, but like she was holding herself together. Her eyes were soft, uncertain, like she was seeing something she hadn't expected. I lifted my coffee cup in a quiet good morning. She didn't wave back, but she didn't look away either. And I knew then this woman had been hurt in ways she hadn't named out loud. But somewhere beneath those scars was a part of her that still wanted to believe. Over the next few days, I learned Juliana's routine without trying. She woke early before Lily, sat alone on her porch with coffee, watching the sunrise. She wore that oversized sweatshirt most mornings, always tucking her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. Around 9, Lily would burst out, like a tiny hurricane demanding breakfast and beach time and attention. Juliana would laugh, real laughter, and chase her daughter down the sand. For those moments, she looked lighter, freer. But by noon, when Lily napped, the heaviness returned. She'd sit alone, staring at the water, her gaze somewhere far away. I recognized that look. I saw it in the mirror every morning. One afternoon, while I was fixing a loose board on my porch, Lily wandered over and plopped down beside me. "What you doing?" "Fixing a step," I said. "It was wobbly. Can I help?" I handed her a piece of sandpaper. She took the job seriously, sanding with intense focus. "My daddy never fixed things," she said suddenly. I kept my voice steady. "No, he said that's what other people were for." She paused. "Mommy fixes everything now." Something tightened in my chest. "Your mommy sounds strong." She nodded. "She is. But sometimes she cries when she thinks I'm asleep." I didn't know what to say, so I kept working. That evening, Juliana appeared at the edge of my porch. "Lily said you let her help you," she said carefully. "She's a great assistant." Juliana almost smiled. "She doesn't warm up to strangers. Maybe I'm not a stranger anymore." She studied me, then tucked her hair behind her ear. "Would you like to have dinner with us tomorrow?" I blinked. "Dinner?" She swallowed. "I make decent pasta." I could hear the courage it took. "I'd like that." She nodded once and left before she could change her mind. And as I watched her go, I wondered what kind of man makes a woman this strong believe she isn't enough. Dinner was chaos in the best way. Lily talked non-stop, nearly knocking over her juice. Juliana apologized, but I waved it off. "This is the best dinner I've had in years." She looked at me like I'd spoken another language. Afterward, while Lily watched cartoons, Juliana and I sat on the porch with wine. "Can I ask you something?" she asked. "Anything." "Why weren't you like the others?" I chose my words carefully. "Because I wasn't looking at your body. I was looking at you." She was quiet. Then she whispered about her ex-husband, about the years she believed his words. "You stopped seeing yourself," I said. She nodded, tears shining. "The bikini was the first time I stopped letting him live in my head. That's not weakness," I said. "That's bravery." She looked at me, something shifting behind her eyes. "Why are you being so kind?" "Because someone should be." When she went inside, she paused. "Thank you for seeing me." And when I walked home that night, stars scattered overhead, I felt something I thought I'd buried with my wife, hope. Then, I learned her past wasn't finished with her. It was already on its way. The weeks that followed unfolded with the quiet kind of magic you only notice once you're already inside it. Nothing dramatic announced itself. No grand confessions, no promises spoken too soon. Just a slow, steady rhythm that settled into our days like the tide learning the shape of the shore. Morning coffee on separate porches turned into morning coffee on the same set of steps. Dinner invitations stopped feeling like invitations and started feeling like habits. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Sundays. Lily began calling me Mr. Colby like it was a title I'd earned, like it meant something official, and she reached for my hand without asking whenever we walked down to the water. I didn't push Juliana. I didn't pry into the places she kept locked. I just showed up every day, consistent as the ocean. And little by little, so slowly I almost missed it, her walls began to thin. One evening, after Lily had fallen asleep on the couch with sand still clinging to her hair, Juliana and I sat on the back porch watching heat. Lightning flicker along the horizon. The air was heavy, warm, smelling of rain that hadn't fallen yet. "Tell me about her," Juliana said quietly. I didn't need to ask who she meant. "Her name was Grace," I said, the word still tender. She was a terrible cook. Burnt toast every morning. She'd laugh and say it built character. Juliana smiled softly. She sang in the shower, I went on. Badly. But she sounded so happy. I'd stand outside just to listen. My throat tightened. When she got sick, she made me promise not to disappear. She told me not to turn into a ghost. Juliana reached over and rested her hand on mine. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. That touch said everything words couldn't. 3 days later, everything changed. Lily slipped on a wet rock and went down hard. Her scream shattered the calm. I was already running when Juliana stood up. I knelt beside Lily, cleaned the cut, talked her through it with a ridiculous story about a crab in a top hat. Her crying slowed. When I looked up, Juliana was staring at me like she was seeing something she'd never seen before. That night, she told me Marcus never held Lily when she cried. That's not parenting, I said quietly. That's cruelty. She nodded, eyes shining. No one's ever made me feel safe, she whispered. I took her hand. You are now. The words surprised both of us. The next morning, Ruth showed up with a casserole and no filter. Stop being careful, she told me. Be brave. That night, after Lily went to bed, I finally said it. I'm not going anywhere. Juliana, she stared at me, then walked around the table and kissed me. Soft, tentative, real? I'm terrified, she whispered. Me too, I said, but I don't want to be careful anymore. And for one perfect night, everything felt possible. The next morning, a black SUV rolled into her driveway. A man stepped out in an expensive suit, confidence polished to a shine. Juliana froze on the porch, whispering a name that chilled my blood. Marcus. He smiled like he owned the place. Juliana, he said smoothly. You look good. She didn't move. What are you doing here? I came to see my daughter. I stepped beside Juliana. Marcus's eyes flicked to me, dismissive. Who's this? My neighbor, Juliana said too quickly. Marcus smiled wider. Neighbor, he repeated. He talked about change, about therapy, about family. I watched doubt flicker in Juliana's eyes and felt anger coiled tight in my chest. Then Lily appeared. She didn't run to Marcus. She ran to me, wrapped her arms around my leg, trembling. I don't want to go with him, she whispered. Marcus's mask slipped for half a second. Juliana stepped forward. You need to leave. Marcus's smile turned cold. This isn't over. He drove away, gravel spraying. Juliana stood frozen, then turned to me, walls slamming back into place. You should go, she said quietly. And just like that, she disappeared inside, leaving me standing alone with the sound of waves and the sickening, feeling that something precious was slipping through my fingers. 2 weeks passed like a lifetime. She avoided me. Curtains closed, doors unanswered. Ruth found me staring at nothing. She's scared, Ruth said. So show her you're not going anywhere. The next morning, I sat on Juliana's porch with 2 coffees and waited. When the door opened, she looked exhausted, raw. I'm not him, I said softly. I'm not going to hurt you. Lily appeared behind her. Are you and Mommy going to be friends again? Juliana broke then, half laughing, half sobbing. She took the coffee and sat beside me. He's going to fight for custody, she said. Then we'll fight back, I said. Together. She leaned her head against my shoulder. And that was enough. 6 months can change. A life when they're filled with the right kind of patience. The custody fight didn't explode all at once the way people imagine those things do. It crept in slowly, through certified letters and tense, phone calls and the quiet dread that settled into Juliana's shoulders every time. Marcus's name appeared on her screen. He hired expensive lawyers. He made accusations wrapped in polite language. He painted himself as a concerned father who'd simply been misunderstood. But lies have a way of collapsing under their own weight. The truth didn't need drama. It just waited. And when it finally came out, it came out clean and undeniable. Therapy records that didn't exist. Promises he never kept. A pattern of absence that couldn't be explained away. When the judge ruled, it was almost anticlimactic. Marcus lost, not just the case, but the last thread of control he thought he had. He stopped calling, stopped fighting. His pride bruised beyond repair. And Lily stayed where she'd always belonged. With her mother. With safety. with laughter that rang out across. The beach every morning like proof that some things really do survive the storm. Lily turned 7 that summer. She got a new sandcastle kit with tiny buckets and molds shaped like turtles and stars. Ruth taught her how to string seashell necklaces, patiently guiding her small fingers while offering unsolicited commentary about life, love, and why people overcomplicate things they shouldn't. Every morning, without fail, Lily knocked on my door to show me whatever treasure she'd found. A shell with a hole clean through it, a piece of driftwood shaped like a heart, another sand dollar, cracked but still beautiful. "This one almost made it," she'd say solemnly. And I'd tell her almost still counted for something. Juliana and I took our time. No rushing. No pressure. We learned each other in the quiet moments. The way she liked her coffee. The way she went still when something frightened her instead of pulling away. The way she laughed with her whole body when she forgot to be careful. Some nights we talked until the stars faded. Other nights we sat in silence, shoulders touching, listening to the waves do what they'd always done long before either of us existed. One evening in late autumn, the air cool enough to raise goosebumps, we walked down to the same stretch of beach where we'd first met. The sky burned with color as the sun sank low, painting the water gold and copper. Juliana wore that same red bikini under an open cardigan. Not because she needed to prove anything, because she wanted to, because she could. Because no one would ever again convince her she didn't deserve to take up space. I watched her without realizing I was doing it. She caught me and lifted an eyebrow. "Eyes are up here." I smiled. "You wore that bikini on purpose." She stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell vanilla and sea salt. "Maybe I did," she whispered. This time, when I kissed her, there was no hesitation. No fear, just choice. When we pulled back, her forehead rested against mine. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." Lily came barreling toward us, sand in her hair, holding up another sand dollar. "It's not broken," she announced proudly. Juliana knelt and pulled her into a hug. I watched them, my chest full in a way I hadn't known was still possible. I thought about what I'd told Lily that first morning. Most sand dollars don't survive the journey. But sometimes, if you're lucky, one makes it through everything. I found mine, not a shell. A family, didn't believe in endings the way people talk about them in stories. Neat and tied off. Every loose thread tucked away where you don't have to think about it again. Life never worked like that. What I believed in, standing there on that beach with the woman I loved and the child, who'd somehow become my whole world, was continuation. The choice to keep waking up and choosing the same people over and over again, even when it scared you, especially when it scared you. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep, curled between stuffed animals that smelled faintly of salt and sunscreen, Juliana and I sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, the ocean breathing in and out below us. "Do you ever think about her?" Juliana asked quietly, not needing to say Grace's name. "Every day," I said, "but it doesn't hurt the same anymore." She nodded. "I think she'd like you," she said after a moment. The words landed gently, not like permission, not like comparison, just truth. I reached for Juliana's hand and laced my fingers through hers. "I think she'd be relieved," I said. "She didn't want me alone." Juliana leaned into my shoulder, her weight warm and real. Somewhere inside the cottage, Lily murmured in her sleep. The wind carried the sound of waves, steady and faithful. Months passed, then years, not marked by dramatic milestones, but by small moments that stitched themselves into permanence. School mornings with mismatched socks, burnt toast that made me smile for reasons I never explained. Juliana laughing in the shower, off-key and unapologetic, the sound drifting down the hallway and stopping me in my tracks the first time it happened. The first time Lily called me Colby without the mister and didn't even realize she'd done it. The first time Juliana reached for my hand in public without hesitation. The past didn't disappear. It softened. Marcus faded into what he'd always truly been, noise without substance. Grief didn't vanish either. It transformed, becoming something quieter, something that lived alongside joy instead of strangling it. One evening, not long after Lily turned 8, we walked the beach together as the sun dipped low, painting the water in fire and gold. Lily ran ahead, chasing foam and shouting. About treasures, she was certain. The ocean had saved just for her. Juliana slowed her steps until we lagged behind. You know, she said, her voice thoughtful, I used to think being strong meant never needing anyone. She looked at me then, eyes clear, unguarded. Now I think it means letting the right people stay. I stopped, walking, and turned to her. The wind tugged at her hair. The sea rolled endlessly behind her. I saw again the woman I'd met that first day, standing alone in red-like armor, daring the world to challenge her. Only now she wasn't alone. I reached into my pocket, my heart thudding louder than the surf, and knelt in the sand. Juliana's breath caught. Lily turned, sensing something important, and froze mid-step. Juliana, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside my chest. I can't promise you a life without pain. I can promise you this. I will see you. I will choose you. I will show up every day for you and for Lily, for as long as you'll let me. Tears spilled freely down her cheeks. She didn't try to stop them. Are you asking me? I am, I said, but only if you're ready. She laughed through her tears, a sound so full it hurt to hear. I've been ready, she said, and nodded. Lily shrieked and ran toward us, nearly tackling me as Juliana covered her mouth with her hands, shaking her head in disbelief. When I stood and slipped the ring onto Juliana's finger, she kissed me like the world could fall apart and she'd still be standing. We didn't rush the wedding. Of course we didn't. We planned it the same way we planned everything else. Carefully, honestly. It happened on the beach at sunset, just us, a few neighbors, Ruth crying the loudest and pretending she wasn't. Lily walked Juliana down the sand, scattering shells instead of flowers. When Juliana reached me, barefoot and glowing, she whispered, You still see me, right? I smiled and squeezed her hands. Always. Years later, when Lily was older and the questions got bigger, she asked me one morning as we walked the shoreline, Do you think the ocean remembers everyone? I thought about that. About loss. About love. About second chances. I think the ocean remembers the ones who survive, I said. She nodded, satisfied, and ran ahead. I watched Juliana laughing as Lily tugged her toward the water, the sunlight catching in her hair. I thought about broken things and how some of them make it through anyway. I thought about red bikinis worn like armor and smiles that sneak out when you least expect them. I thought about how seeing someone, really seeing them, can change the entire course of a life. And I wondered quietly about you. Is there someone who truly sees you? Not for what you can give them or how you look or what you've endured, but for who you are beneath it all. And if that person is standing at the edge of your life right now, are you brave enough to let them stay? If this story found you where you live, if it reminded you that love can come after loss and strength can look like softness, then stay with us. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notification bell, because these are the stories we tell here. Stories about broken people who survive, about second chances that arrive quietly, and about families found when you least expect them. Your story isn't finished yet.